Hello. We can find our seats, please. That would be wonderful. Hassan, you need to sit where a box is right there, please. Thank you. Okay. Hello. I'm Rima Zalkout. I am the librarian at the Arab American Museum, National Museum's Russell J. Ibaid Library and Resource Center. Thank you for joining us for the 18th Annual Arab American Book Awards. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silence to pay respect to all of our martyrs and victims of the ongoing genocide led by Israel and the US. Please take a moment to honor and remember all of the lives lost and displayed across our beloved homelands in Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Sudan, and beyond. Thank you. I want to take this time to say, though I know, we all know, that a moment of silence is not enough. We must continue to organize and disrupt, to support mutual aid, to support and share the words of journalists on the ground who are risking their lives and being murdered by the Zionist entity daily to share the truth. The power of our words means nothing if we do not continue to resist and to support resistance. Today, tonight and today, I think of my cousin's husband, Haidar, who I learned 2 hours before the ceremony was killed in Lebanon. I think about my grandmother, who has dreamed of a life free from the terror of Israel. Tata, inshallah, you will see that day soon. Yeah. Sorry. He was a very good man, and I just want to take a second to name him and remember him, and his wife, who doesn't even know that he passed away yet. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to also ground us with an acknowledgement of that the Arab American National Museum sits on colonized and ancestral land of the Anishinaabe people, known as the Three Fires Confederacy, and of the Wyandot people. I'd also like to acknowledge that our neighboring city, Detroit, is an Anishinaabe territory and is in the largest majority Black city in the nation with a long legacy of African diasporic contributions. We at the Arab American National Museum confirm that we are actively cultivating partnerships with the indigenous and diasporic communities within and around the museum to uplift, honor, and learn from them. Each year, winners are selected by committees of judges, which include scholars, educators, authors, several of whom are here tonight. Can you please stand so we can acknowledge your labor over the last few months? Judges, please. Thank you. They have the hardest job of this entire year-long event because they're the ones who have to choose through so many amazing books, but they've chosen great tonight, so hopefully you will enjoy the ceremony. Thank you for your dedication and for your commitment to the Book Awards. I'd like to also highlight that two of our awards are named in honor of our great supporter, George Ellenbogen, and his late partner, Evelyn Shakir. Dr. Ellenbogen is with us tonight, and we are appreciative of his continued support, so thank you for being here. Additionally, our Lifetime Achievement Award, the last award of the night, is named in honor of Dr. Anan Amri, who is in attendance with us tonight. Thank you to Dr. Anan for your support. Following the book awards, there will be a book signing in the courtyard upstairs, and we will be holding an open mic hosted by Sahir Jean Mohammed. Former artist in residence at AANM and assistant professor of English at Bowdoin College. An award, there's a lot of things I have only read like in my head, and so sometimes. An award-winning writer and a book award judge. We welcome you all to stay after the ceremony to participate in the event. You can sign up for the open mic by writing your name on a giant sign-up sheet in the courtyard near the fat one upstairs after the ceremony. Finally, we are really excited to be launching Zawaya next year, a new AANM signature literary event. Zawaya, meaning corners in Arabic, is where edges, lines, and sides meet. This book launch event celebrates a number of works published in the last year that touch on intersectionality and explore new literary corners. Come for new books and fresh perspectives on April 26, 2025. For any authors who have published a book from April 2024 or have publications forthcoming through April 2025, you are eligible to be featured, and we encourage you to apply. Stay tuned for more information. So we will now move on into what you're all here for. The first award of the night is the winners of this year's Evelyn Shakir Nonfiction Award, an honor that goes to scholarly and creative works that successfully weave the stories of our community with the realities we live in. Tonight, we begin with the Nonfiction Academic Award. This is from the judges. A remarkable book, The Right Kind of Suffering, Gender, Sexuality, and Arab Asylum Seekers in America, illuminates a core yet frequently unstated condition of the asylum process, the coerced construction of the perfect victim. Engaging the strategic inclusions and omissions of 4 successful Arab American asylum cases, Roda Kanana reveals the ideological underpinnings of the American asylum process. The work is a model of what we might call engaged ethnography and lays bare the ugly stereotypes. So I'm just gonna skip that one. I'm so sorry. And the feelings invoked by an immigration system built on caprice, inequality, cultural chauvinism, and stinginess. The Right Kind of Suffering exerts wide relevance and import to the Arab American community, as well as all advocates for immigrant rights and justice for its subject matter, as well as the strength of its writing, clarity of analysis, and ethical stance. Please welcome Dr. Roda to the stage.
Thank you so much. During these dark times, I'm very happy to be in this community space with all of you and with my wonderful fellow authors. I'd like to thank many people, including the many asylum seekers who agreed to participate in my research, but also my family, some of whom are here tonight. My mom and dad are in the audience. As you just heard, my book, The Right Kind of Suffering, is about Arab asylum seekers who use gender and sexuality as a basis for their applications. You won't be shocked to hear that our asylum system in the US is badly broken. It's not only broken because of the incredible backlog, the injustice and cruelty of how it operates, that applicants have no right to an attorney even when incarcerated in immigration detention, but it's also broken in the narrative structure it requires. Asylum seekers find themselves having to vilify and flatten the cultures they came from in the process of throwing themselves at the mercy of the United States, a country that they have to hail as superior and perfect in all ways. In many asylum cases I interpreted for, women were encouraged to represent themselves as victims of a kind of timeless Eastern oppression, and gays and lesbians were encouraged to describe themselves as persecuted by nothing less than Islam itself. This narrative imperative is broken for several reasons. It's a simplistic narrative, draws stereotyped and inaccurate image of the countries of origin. They disregard the forms of violence that persist here in the US against women and LGBTQI people. They ignore the US involvement in the creation of the very conditions people want to escape, supporting wars and dictatorships that produce more potential asylum seekers. And that is radically illustrated in our recent history. It also obscures the torture and re-traumatization to which asylum seekers are subject in the very process of trying to seek safety. My book tries to tell a more nuanced story, and I sincerely thank the Arab American National Museum for amplifying that complexity. Thank you so much.
Forgot my tie. That's the most important thing. The second Evelyn Shakir Nonfiction Creative Award goes to Anna Lakis Miller for her work Love Across Borders, Passports, Papers, and Romance in a Divided World. The judges said, Love Across Borders masterfully blends journalism and memoir to offer an incisive look at migration and staleness. The author weaves through reporting with a coming-of-age love story and testimonies from couples facing immigration limbo, from Mexico to Greece. The book connects the emotional and psychological impact of living in a divided world, skillfully centering the author's relationship with Salem while introducing historical and scholarly insights. The primary focus on Arabs, Arab Americans, and the Arab world expands to include Japanese, Mexican, Ukrainian, and other couples navigating geopolitical turmoil. Through historical research on visas and passports, interviews with affected couples, and the author's own lived experiences, the narrative powerfully draws parallels across geographical and political realities, exposing the suffering inflicted by global borders without falling into victim narratives. This timely work ultimately highlights the determination to make love work within hostile immigration systems, making it a profound and well-reported book. Please welcome Anna Lakis Miller to the stage.
First, let's see, I'm reading from my phone, sorry. So first, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Arab American Museum for both bringing us all together tonight, but also being abundantly patient with me as a journalist, pestering them with questions whenever I'm writing an article about the Arab American community. You truly do an invaluable thing here in how you help people understand their history. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you. To tell you the truth, I actually had something quite different prepared for tonight, but then Donald Trump won the election, and suddenly my little book of love stories of ordinary people resisting unjust immigration policies became a lot more relevant. So I wanted to read you a little something that's actually from the end of that, in hopes that you might want to read the beginning and the middle as well. In hopes that it would also be a break from the shouting and the sadness as we all prepare for whatever is to come. So here's that. Love stories are supposed to follow a narrative arc. Two people drawn towards one another, often over or in spite of a conflict that nearly breaks them, dramatically coming together in a moment that smooths the bumpy ride with a promise of a happily ever after for the audience. But I found that love stories about borders rarely follow this formula. Borders provide so many obstacles that there's rarely room for this kind of intimate spats and lovers' quarrels that make us all human. If we dare to let them in, even for a second, we may crack under the pressure. Limbo can also be so prolonged and so painful that we have to forget our expectations for how our life together is supposed to look and create new traditions defined by patience and perseverance. A love across borders is most often not defined by soaring music and a dramatic chase scene, but by daring to believe that we can love whomever we choose, even in a world that is divided by passports and papers. How do we break down these borders? Sometimes it is within our control. Other times it's not. But we start chipping away at these borders the moment we take a chance on the people that we love. It is Wallet stepping onto a rickety boat in the pitch black night, Ava packing up her car and leaving behind everything that she knows. It is Amal sending Muhammad a friend request after 12 years of not speaking, and Muhammad fighting relentlessly until the day that they can finally be together. Even when our lives have not been dictated by passports and papers, love guides our movements, bringing us closer to where we need to be. We explore the world to go looking for new love, but sometimes end up closer to home, craving something familiar. We take a chance on a new city to follow our heart, hoping that it won't end up shattered. We move home to take care of aging family members, holding on to as much time as we can have together. Sometimes the love that finds us is not a romance, but a friendship or a community that we did not know we needed. Long conversations with old friends remind us of who we are, and creating our chosen family helps us support each other through difficult times and celebrate when those difficult times pass. It is Mona and the family meeting every Sunday on a park bench in Frosinone, or Richard and Marissa realizing that it's not too late to lean on one another, even after they spent so many years estranged. Even our romantic love is nourished by the communities around us. It is Karina creating the community that she craved for so long and nourishing it as long as it grows. It is Rayan and Samih paying tribute to the people who brought them together, and Cecilia fighting for families to be together even when hers is not. Our world has been built on policies that privilege some and exclude others. Love is the only antidote to a divided world. Love means not giving up on one another. It is Valentina and Lorenzo getting married to live without fear of separation. Oscar and Darwin writing one another love letters, even when they did not know if they would ever see each other again. It's the feeling I had in a hotel room in the Kurdish mountains, when I realized that the only way that Salim and I could be together would be if I took a chance and exchanged the life I thought we would have for the unknown, and the actions that gave me strength as we navigate the highs and lows of a world that is still organized by passports and papers. As I gathered these stories, I realized that most of what we are fighting for is incredibly basic. It is the right to be together, to visit our loved ones and be with our families the way that we want to be. It is the right to have children without worrying about their papers, and to make sure that our children never have to worry about living without their parents. It is about the right to fall in love with whomever we choose and nourish that love wherever in the world we feel the most like ourselves. It is so basic that it should be a universal human right, but unfortunately it is not. Until it is, our stories will be defined by how we love in the meantime, the way that we take care of ourselves through each other as we brace for shipwrecks and storms, with hope that someday the clouds will part and the light will shine through, letting us bask in its warmth. As long as we are fighting for the people that we love, love is all around us. Thank you, everyone.
Next, I'd like to bring attention to our honorable mentions in the nonfiction category. This year, the judges chose 2 honorable mentions: Possible Histories, Arab Americans and the Queer Ecology of Pedaling by Dr. Charlotte Karam Elbrecht. And The Weight of Ghosts by Leila Halabi. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Charlotte Elbrecht to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. Thank you for being here. I want to especially thank the judges for selecting my book for an honorable mention. I want to thank my partner who's here tonight and my family, especially because family members and ancestors were the inspiration for my book and the seeds of much of the beginnings. And it means a lot to me to receive an honorable mention, especially because the perspectives and responses from other Arab Americans have been really central to my thinking since I started this project a long, long time ago when I was a graduate student at the University of Minnesota. This book focuses on the labor that Arab immigrants did as peddlers in the late 19th and early 20th century of the United States. But peddling was just the means to be able to examine and think about what I was really interested in, which is the entanglements of race with gender and sexuality, especially in history, and as a result, the erasure of the fullness of experiences and thinking about sexuality from our community's histories. And at the time that I began this project in my first year of a PhD program, I didn't know that Arab American studies was a field, was something that I could do, and I didn't even know that my own family's history was embedded in a larger history, and one in which Arabs made temporary and permanent homes in the United States that long ago. But as I undertook the research for this book and focused less on my own family, I felt certain that the questions that I had about the disciplinary power of gender, sexuality, and race were still lingering later and generations later, and I felt more sure that other families and other Arab Americans might have those experiences too. So that's why it was gratifying and a little bit unsettling after my book was published and there was some publicity about it that I began to receive messages from other third and fourth generation Arab Americans like myself, who then began sharing incredible stories about family secrets, suppressed histories, especially with regard to race and sexuality, and seem to continue to haunt people generations on, sometimes in productive ways. Haunting is not always a bad thing. So I wanted to share sort of the context with you about my research, and to also affirm that sometimes you have a hunch, and sometimes that hunch is actually rooted in a very deep history that you just don't know about, and you need to pursue it. And then finally, I just wanted to sort of note and commend or mark that both of the award winner and the honorable mention in the academic nonfiction category are books about Arabs, Arab experiences, and Arab studies that focus on sexuality and gender and how important that is. And I want to note that especially in a space where, you know, before our lives were turned upside down with the genocide, you know, many in our communities and many other communities in the United States were preoccupied with scapegoating trans people especially, right? And that what we're going to sort of be unfortunately facing in the coming years is an onslaught on multiple fronts that I think forces us to confront the multiple sort of truths of our communities and you know, the beauty in our lives in multiple ways. So I'll end there. Thank you.
I would like to invite our next honorable mention, Leila Halabi, for her book, The Weight of Ghosts.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. So I did not set out to write this book. I primarily write fiction. I like to be in other people's stories. I had no intention of writing this book. I wish to God I had not had the opportunity to write this book. I'm a writer, and I wrote to survive this worst thing, the death of my oldest child. Somewhere along the way, though, the editor voice kicked in and started organizing. And then there was COVID, right? And everyone was talking about death. Oh my gosh, really? And everyone was talking about death, and no one was talking about death. And I had this book that was all about death and who we are in its aftermath. And so I submitted it for publication, immediately regretted it, and here we are. So thank you. It is natural in the darkest of times in which we find ourselves right now, amid horrors, to put the arts as secondary, right? Or maybe at the bottom of the list. Because how can a story or a painting or a poem matter? How can it make things better? How can words really? How can words or brushstrokes or beats matter at a time like this? But we know it does, and here we are, right? Writing and the arts helped me to survive. I am sure I am not the only one. So, thank you to the judges, to the Arab American National Museum for recognizing the weight of ghosts, and for continuing to uplift and champion our voices. And I hope that we continue to do that for each other, not just support one another, but really uplift and champion one another. I also hope that you'll join me at the signing table afterwards. We started a project in Rad's honor. Backstory. So he had a girlfriend, and she had mad anxiety. And so he gave her this, I'm a counselor, clinical term there. He gave her this little wooden emu, and they named it Roger the Special Occasion Emu. And he told her, if you're feeling anxious, if you're worried, just, take it out. I'm there. And so fast forward a few months, I was teaching a class, and I'm a little bit last minute, and I didn't have an activity, and Rod was really good with suggestions. So he's like, why don't you do something with the animals, like Roger? So I'm like, all right. He's like, we've got those tub of plastic animals, like every parent does, right? And so I took a plastic tub of animals to the polytrauma unit of the VA where I was teaching, and I thought I was just doing one little activity. But the activity blossomed, and if you're interested, I'll tell you more about it, and you can have an animal and join in. And I'm going to read to you just a wee tiny bit from The Weight of Ghosts, hopefully without losing it. To be denied your story is to know Palestine. I wear her dresses and am told they are beautiful, until I say whose tired fingers stitch them. And then they become acts of war, unexploded bombs waiting to happen. In jeans, you look American, as though American is a look that erases blood and eyes and histories. You are with us or against us. Like teenage boys, America has no nuance or sense of history. Buzzwords change the landscape. That's why words matter. The white man I loved told me, you think too much. And I told him, someone has to. Thank you. He also said, are you still talking? When I'd be in the middle of a story he had grown tired of, or because it brought up his own, one he had spent good work packing in a box and shoving under the house. Trauma doesn't ask for passports. Trauma seeks a soft bed. Palestine twinkles in the distance. To know Palestine is to know heartbreak, and vice versa. To know Palestine is to know resistance and to occasionally wear glory. Thank you.
The second category tonight is for fiction. Tonight we honor Shubik Lubik by Dina Muhammad. Dina Muhammad Shubik Lubik melds Egyptian literary traditions of realistic fiction and fantastical folktale to present a vivid, imaginative, original portrait of a modern-day Egypt. In this beautiful graphic novel, arts, words, narrative, imagination, and emotion draw readers into a subversive look at social stratification and corruption and how people survive them. Muhammad's characters and details leap off the page. This book is timely for Arab Americans who are trying to learn more about Arab societies reeling under authoritarianism and censorship, and the real Egyptians who struggle and triumph every day. Muhammad effortlessly takes us from working-class Cairo to elite gated communities and to the shores of Alexandria, all with humor and aplomb. Each of her characters is given dimension, including, perhaps most notably, its queer characters. She engages all our senses with her meticulously rendered settings and her relatable characters, destined to be a classic in Arabic literature. Please welcome Dina to the stage.
Hello. Thank you all for having me. Wow, this is heavy. And thank you to all the speeches previous. They were all really, really beautiful. Mine is also, unfortunately, on my phone, so I have to live like this. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for appreciating comics. It's not often that comics are awarded at, especially a literary award, which I truly appreciate. They gave us all 5 minutes to speak, but I actually wasn't sure what to use this podium for, because I think in this room you might risk preaching to the choir a little bit, and also my book is full of pictures, so I can't read from it. And so before that, I also want to know I'm Egyptian. I'm not actually Arab American. I'm an imposter. And so I prepared something. I wanted to show you, this is an illustration by another Egyptian illustrator who's also a friend of mine. She's an Egyptian comics artist, and her name is Nouron. And if we have the next slide, this is Nouron's best friend. Her name is Lana, and she is a new mother in Gaza. She is currently raising her 1-year-old son. So I think because of that, I decided to create an interactive activity for all of us. So if you could all please take out your phones. This exercise has been somewhat hindered by this, what's the word for this? Theater? Because you will have to connect to the Wi-Fi. And I'm sorry to the museum, but I'm gonna leak your Wi-Fi password. So if you all connect to the Wi-Fi, I think the Wi-Fi password is 313. I'm so sorry. 624 0235. So it's 313-624-0235. I hope you're all connected to the Wi-Fi. And if you're not, I will help you to do this later. But Lena, you know, as artists, we do have a role in times like this, but sometimes this role can feel quite futile. But one thing we can do is reach people. And I think I've been able to reach you here all the way from Cairo, so I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity and this podium and help my friend's friend. So if we could go to the next. This is the QR code that will take you to Lena's campaign. So if you all donate, don't donate all your money, donate because we've got a few more to do, but donate an amount you feel is reasonable. I think it would be really, really nice for her to wake up tomorrow and feel supported. And it's been really hard for both Noron and I to manage this campaign. I'm sure a lot of you know how difficult it's been to share things about Palestine. So thanks for giving me this stage. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. This is Bilal. He's a friend of my friend, Karima, who evacuated from Gaza in last December. And he's Karima's childhood friend. This is his father. He was recently burned in a bombing, and he's trying to recover from his injuries. And Bilal's campaign has also been quite stagnant. It's for all 18 of his family members. We've been trying to raise some money for them. They've been living in a tent for over a year since Karima got out. So if we could go to the next one. Thank you. If you guys would feel free. I think there's quite a few people here. If you'd like to donate a little bit to Bilal's campaign, I would appreciate it. Thank you all so much. And then the last thing I want to say is, as an Egyptian, as you know, we are bordered by 3 countries who are not doing very well. And one of those countries is Sudan. And my Sudanese friends don't often have a lot of individual campaigns to donate to, but they do. One of the things that's happening in Sudan is that they have emergency response teams. So they have grassroots kitchens and community clinics that they raise. And so there's a collective fund that has been running these. And the good thing about these is that a little goes a really long way. So because of the currency exchange and because of the way things are. So if we go to the last slide, this is the last slide. So if you still have money, it's good. This is the Sudan Solidarity Collective, and this is what most Sudanese people advise donating to. And the good thing about it is you can set up a monthly donation. I have it set up to, I think, like $25 a month. If everyone here does that, that's a lot of money that can actually go a very, very, very long way. You could feed an entire village for almost over a month. So I would really appreciate if all of you did that today. I am here just to take your money. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I expect to see an Instagram post talking about how much we raised as a group tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Next, we welcome the honorable mention in fiction, Ghassan Zainuddin, for his book, Dearborn. Please join me in welcoming Ghassan to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Ahlan. Thank you so much to the Arab American National Museum for hosting and organizing this event, and just for bringing us together. I think this is just such a special space, and it's just remarkable. I mean, Leila Halabi, I've been teaching your fiction for almost a decade. What an honor. Lina Tafaha Khalaf, Dina Muhammad, I just about a month ago, I was talking to my colleague at the college where I work, and I said, you've got to read this amazing graphic novel. We got to bring Dina to our campus. So it's just such a special space, and such an honor to share this space with you all. So Alf Mabluk to the writers. Thank you so much to the judges. And thank you so much to my family and my friends. So I came to live in Dearborn in the summer of 2018. I was hired to teach Arab American literature and creative writing at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. I had heard of Dearborn back in high school in Washington, D.C., where my family and I had immigrated to in 1990. My parents occasionally ordered boxes of baklawa from the Shatila bakery, which obviously is in Dearborn. All I knew was that a lot of Arabs lived up north. I began to learn more about Dearborn during graduate school, where I researched the Arab American experience and came across the city in various Arab American novels, such as Diana Abu Jaber's Crescent and Ali Yunus's The Night Counter. When I began teaching Arab American literature as a visiting professor at a liberal arts college in central Ohio, and this was before moving to Dearborn, I started to mythologize the place. I shared articles about Dearborn and showed pictures and video clips of the city to my students. Dearborn has the highest concentration of Arabs in America, I said. There are even store signs in Arabic. Isn't that interesting? And I literally grew an obsession with the city before ever even stepping foot in it. I fantasize about living in an Arab American community without knowing what that entailed. In Beirut, where I once lived, it wasn't uncommon for taxi drivers, once they heard me speak Arabic and asked where I was coming from, and I answered, America, to then ask, from Michigan? A few even followed with, from Dearborn? My wife, Rena's parents, were delighted that we were moving to Dearborn, as it would facilitate Rena's transition from Lebanon to America. Rana was born and raised in Lebanon, and at the time, before we were married, she had decided to follow me to Michigan, thank God. Rana's parents had seen TV reports about the Arab community in Dearborn and had heard stories about the city from those who had traveled back and forth between Dahi, a suburb of Beirut, and Dearborn. There's halal meat in Dearborn, Rana's mother said. Nothing will change for you, Rana's father said. Rana's older brother, Yusuf, who lives in Berlin, was perplexed. You're crossing the ocean to live among Arabs? He asked her. Dearborn soon became our home. It's the only place in America where I feel that I belong, where Rana and I would like our young daughters to grow roots in. I'm so proud of the city for uniting and standing strong against the genocide in Palestine and Israel's indiscriminate bombing of Lebanon. Although the city is a great deal of pain, for over a year, residents have seen their loved ones be killed in Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria. It continues to be a place of resistance against anti-Arab and anti-Muslim racism and a place of Arab American activism. It's no surprise that the uncommitted movement developed in Dearborn. It's no surprise that some of our most prominent and vocal Arab American political leaders, including Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, are from the Detroit metro area. Dearborn has shown America that Arab American voices and lives matter, that we as a community will not be silenced or intimidated as we continue to fight for our loved ones in the Arab world and for our own stake in this country. We won't be defeated. Thank you.
Sorry. Our next category for tonight is children and young adults. This year, the Children's Award goes to Hanam Shabak for her book, Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine. Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine is a poignant and beautifully written book that offers a unique perspective on the Palestinian experience through the eyes of the author's father. Hanam Shabak skillfully weaves together personal anecdotes, family history, and reflections on identity to create a powerful narrative that resonates with readers. One of the most striking aspects of the book is the portrayal of Arab men in a light of kindness, gentleness, and humanity. In a world where Arab men are often depicted in a negative, stereotypical manner, Shabak's portrayal of her father and other male figures in her life is refreshing and humanizing. Through her vivid descriptions and heartfelt storytelling, she showcases the complexity and depth of Arab men, highlighting their resilience, compassion, and love for their families. By shining a spotlight on the emotional lives of Arab men, Homeland challenges stereotypes and offers a nuanced portrayal that is both necessary and long overdue. Through Mshabak's narrative, readers are invited to see Arab men and families in a new light, one that emphasizes their humanity and the richness of their inner worlds. Homeland makes a significant contribution to Arab Americans by providing a platform for their voices and stories to be heard. By sharing her family's journey and experiences, Mshabak offers a world into the Palestinian American experience and sheds light on the struggles, triumphs, and complexities of navigating dual identities. Please welcome Hannah to the stage.
This is heavy. Thank you so much for this award. For years, I have watched prolific Arab authors win this award and never thought that I would be among them. A huge thank you to the judges, Access, and the Arab American Museum, who does so much to uplift our voices in these hard times. As an author and a book worker, I have always believed that stories have the power to liberate the world. For the past decade, as an editor, author, bookseller, and marketer, I have seen books change lives. I have seen a generation impassioned by a story change the course of history. Exhaustive studies on the effects of representation affirm time and time again that providing windows and mirrors into other worlds benefits all readers. As a reader myself, I have felt the warm embrace of authentic representation in my ethnicity, in my fatness, and in my queerness. I have spent my career uplifting diverse voices that I believe will help us see the humanity in others and in ourselves. When my parents moved to the United States in the 1970s, they were appalled by the misrepresentation of our culture and the stereotyping of Arabs and Muslims they found when they arrived. These were the days long before hummus was in every Whole Foods and belly dance was a trendy exercise. The only Arabs and Muslims my parents saw were as characters in the Indiana Jones movies and in violent news headlines. My parents decided to start a business to change the way people think about the world and bring authentic representation from the global South to American readers. They believed that stories have power. The year that I was born, they started Interlink Publishing, a small independent publishing house in Brooklyn. Thank you. Which is the only Palestinian-owned publisher in the United States today. Thank you. Growing up, my father always told us that books are the gateway to a country's soul, and that as Palestinians, it is important that we educated people about the history, art, literature, and beauty that our culture brings to the world, and that winning the hearts and minds of our peers would be our resistance to the brutal occupation happening in our homeland, funded by our tax dollars. Storytelling is an ancient tradition in Palestinian culture. My sisters and I grew up hearing stories of our ancestral homeland from all of our family members. Some stories were told to my mother by my father's mother, precious tokens meant to be passed like recipes to her daughters. Others were told to us at bedtime when my father returned from work. One story inspired my debut picture book, Homeland, My Father Dreams of Palestine. And then there were the stories told through tears and gasping breaths as my Khalto Hania relived her darkest days. My greatest honor and my greatest burden is to carry these stories and to share them. But not all stories are good. For my entire life, I have listened to the stories told about my people by the media and our AIPAC-funded politicians.
These insidious tales weaponize our language and turn our prayers into calls for violence and our struggle into a threat for humanity. It twists our cries for freedom and liberation to suit their narrative. Americans are told these stories in order to justify Palestinian death as inevitable and simply a cost of safety. The propaganda and misinformation making headlines today mimic the stories told about oppressed people in the past. The story remains the same. This narrative is used to justify state-sanctioned violence against Black folks and unjust laws against LGBTQ people. These stories have been told about Jews in Europe and Japanese Americans during World War II. We celebrate these falsehoods even now as Thanksgiving on this settler colonized land. Why use stories, you ask? Because it takes an elaborate story to convince the world to look away from the massacre happening before our eyes. It harnesses the power of white supremacy to convince the world that thousands of children in Gaza had it coming. The erroneous narrative being woven is causing real harm not just to Palestinian civilians who are being killed in the hundreds every day by US-funded weapons, but to Arab and Muslim Americans who are being silenced, discriminated against, and even assaulted at an alarming rate. It is now more important than ever that we uplift Arab voices and we share our stories. The books being celebrated today do just that, and I am so honored to be among such talented writers. Shukran.
The YA Award honors Alice Rothschild for her book, Old Enough to Know. Old Enough to Know by Alice Rothschild is a powerful and compelling book that sheds light on the Palestinian experience and gives voice to those who have been displaced by war. Through a collection of moving personal stories, Rothschild skillfully weaves together narratives that educate, heal, and advocate for justice. Her well-developed characters humanize the conflict in the Middle East, providing a platform to share stories and experiences. By giving voice to Palestinians and others affected by war, Rothschild helps readers empathize with the struggles and challenges faced by these communities. While highlighting the longing and desire to return to their narrative land, Rothschild highlights the racism and discrimination Arab American and immigrants face as they work to start new lives in a new country, all while trying to preserve their own language, food, culture, and identities. Old Enough to Know serves as an important contribution to Arab American literature, highlighting the diverse perspectives and voices within the community. Through storytelling, Rothschild breaks down stereotypes and misconceptions, fostering understanding and compassion among readers, and amplifying the voices of those whose history has been forcibly rewritten and at times deliberately erased. Please welcome Alice to the stage.
So thank you so much. I am both humbled and honored to be here. For the last 10 years or so, I have been obsessed with the lack of books about Palestine in children's literature, although we are certainly building that repertoire. And so this is my contribution. So my story is about a 9-year-old boy and his 16-year-old sister moved to a new town. They're Palestinian American. They're having all these issues at school, bullying, Islamophobia, all the things you could expect. And their grandmother at home from the Aida refugee camp decides it's time for them to hear her story and to know who they are. And I tell her story through flashbacks. So this is just a flavor of the kind of flashbacks that the grandmother has. And I get to tell the whole history of Palestine through her stories. As the roar of airplanes faded into the distance, Father said loudly, "The British are gone, but now the Haganah, the Jewish troops, are here." Then he stood very tall and looked directly at his children. "This is our land, the home of my father and his father before him and his father before that." He wiped his forehead with a dusty cloth. Our family has been here for hundreds of years. No one can take this from us. May Allah protect us, praised be his name. Fatima, that's the grandmother when she's 10 years old, trembles. She has seen the tears in her father's eyes. Fatima picks up an eggplant and thinks, Baba says no one can take this away from us. No one. Who would feed the goats and the chickens and the doves, and who would water the garden? As she reaches for another eggplant, the air abruptly crackles with a loud explosion, followed by the rat-tat-tat of bullets in the distance. Bilal screams, and Fadi erupts into tears. Before anyone can speak, Father runs into the room and yells, "We have to leave now, the soldiers are coming." Mother looks up, eyes wide with fear. Another burst of gunfire crashes through the silence. "Now," bellows Father. Mother grabs a basket and fills it with flatbread and grape leaves, throws in the eggs, and tosses a blanket over the food as the three girls stare, unable to move. Mother yells, "Layla, you take Bilal, Dalia, pick up Fadi, Fatima, go find Darwish." She opens a drawer, grabs her wedding jewelry, and stuffs it in her clothes. "Turn off the kerosene." They hear Father running upstairs to warn his brother's family, and soon there is a loud clunking of feet and the tap of Grandpa's cane as everyone comes running down the stairs. "Come on, Grandpa, faster, don't be slow," yells Fatima. Father opens the carved wooden front door and looks in at his terrified family. He cautiously scans the hill. "Go," he commands. The family files out, as if in a terrible dream, Grandpa's cheeks puffing with each step. Father locks the door, shoves a large iron key in his pocket, and starts to walk. Fatima cries, "But Baba, what about the goats and my doll and—" Father looks at her firmly. "Not now, Fatima. Don't you hear the soldiers coming?" They all jump and grab each other at the sound of another barrage of bullets, this time a little closer. Father's face softens, and he says to Fatima, "Don't worry, Habibti. The Arab armies will protect us. We will be back in 2 weeks, I promise." Fatima pleads, "But Baba, where are we going?" Father looks at Mother. "East. We are walking east." "East? Where's east?" Fatima questions. She looks up and sees a stream of people coming from all directions, heading towards a dirt road that leads out of the village. She spots her aunts and uncles and countless cousins and people from the surrounding towns. She looks at their grim faces, the lumpy sacks thrown over their shoulders, the baskets and jugs on women's heads, the children carried on each hip, staring blankly or crying. Fatima grips Darwish's hand as he whines, "Too tight, too tight." The family joins the growing river of villagers. A shocked silence hangs in the air as their feet stir up a dusty cloud. When they come up over a stony hill, Fatima gasps, "Soldiers!" On each side of the road, a cluster of men and women, Israeli soldiers, guns pointed at the villagers, yell in Arabic, "Yalla, yalla, faster, faster." "Baba," she cries, and turns to find her father in the dense crowd. She's relieved to see him right behind her, carrying Fadi. She turns back and puts her hand out to grab Darwish again. She looks down. He is gone. "Darwish," she screams, and suddenly Father and Mother are yelling his name, frantically searching the crowd. Fatima darts between people. "Darwish, Darwish, have you seen my little brother? Brown trousers, white cap, no shoes. He's carrying a bag of marbles. He's little. Oh, Darwish." The tears dribble down Fatima's cheeks when suddenly she spots him. "Mama, Baba, I see him." Mother rushes over and scoops up her boy, hugging and patting him. "Habibi, Habibi, we found you." She embraces him, shaking. "We have you. Fatima, do not let him go," she says sternly, and lowers him to the ground. Fatima stops crying, bends down, looks directly at her brother, and wraps her arms around him. She lifts him up, perches him on her hip, wipes her nose with her sleeve, and starts walking, staying close to her parents. Thank you very much.
Additionally, the judges of this category awarded two books as honorable mentions, Tagging Freedom by Randa Romani and Salma Makes a Home by Danny Ramadan. Unfortunately, neither Danny nor Randa could make it here in person, but Randa Romani did send a video in, which we will be watching now.
Good evening. I'm so honored to receive this award for Tagging Freedom tonight, and congratulations to all the other honorees. I started writing children's books in 2017 when I was having a hard time explaining the war in Syria to my own children. So I began to write. Eventually, instead of focusing on the horrors of war, I wrote a story about a moment of hope that captured the hearts and minds of Arabs around the world, the start of the Arab revolutions. By starting at the beginning, I recrafted the narrative to be about more than just war. Tagging Freedom is about a moment of hope and about the power of graffiti and the ways we strive for justice and change. But Tagging Freedom isn't only about Syria, it's about America too. My characters are a product of my worlds. They tell my story, our story. I am Syrian, I am Arab, I am American. Our stories are layered and painful and beautiful and nuanced and uniquely ours. So I thank the Arab American Museum today for honoring our own voices. When others tell our stories, we have to write to their narrative. Today, as Arab Americans, we are finally crafting our own narratives, and today we honor that. The story of Tagging Freedom is a story of resistance, a story of protest. It's also a story of home, the loss of home, and what it means to fight for home wherever we are. It is very hard to be Arab American right now. When I visit schools, I talk about how the road to justice is long. Just because we are down in a chapter, it doesn't mean the story is over. I write for our children and for their future. And I pray that through our own stories, we can reset the narrative as we continue to fight for justice here in Palestine and around the world. Thank you very much.
We are going to shift genres once more to poetry. This year, the George Ellenbogen Poetry Award goes to A Book with a Hole in It by Camelia Awaima Youssef. A Book with a Hole in It is A Book with a Hole in It, Camelia's momentous debut, is as much collection as it is art object, as it is living conversation. In fragmented journal entries, Youssef alchemizes the complicated shades of presence as an Arab woman against the larger backdrop of the US, alongside the dual protections and violences of community. Youssef grieves, then challenges what led us to this grief, celebrates loved ones scattered, then challenges what produced that scatter. A Book with a Hole in It is as innovative as it is instructive, taking strength from Atal Adnan and an abundance of other influences, so lovingly cataloged in the thorough notes section. What a blessing it is for this book to exist for future generations of readers to look to, learn from, and build with. Please welcome Camelia to the stage.
Thank you. I love you guys. I really, really love you guys. It's, man, I had a plan, and then I didn't have a plan, and then I thought I had books, and then I didn't have books. That's what happens in, like, the world of the glorious and abundant and possibility-full world of when you publish your friends or when you work with a small publisher. And when you make something that you didn't know would ever get published because it didn't look like things that got published before. And when you tell a story without actually telling it, you just tell people how it feels to have that story in your life. When you choose what you want to leave out and choose what you want to put in, you choose what secret to show, you choose what you're just going to scream out loud. This book came out of omission, and omission is an act of preserving one's own sense of safety and protection. And sometimes, a lot of times, omission is not a choice for a lot of people. A lot of people have to leave out parts of their lives in order to live their daily life, in order to have shelter, in order to be fed, in order to have people telling them that they love them. You guys know that? A lot of people have to cut out parts of their lives in order to get love. A lot of people have to pretend to be something else in order to be loved. I'm supposed to have a timer. And so this book comes out of that. A desire to let everybody know and to have evidence in the form of a book that this story existed, that my story existed, and that every place has a lot of stories that exist but are not told. And that is a fundamental aspect of my writing. That's my drive as a teacher. That's my drive as a publisher, as a printer, as somebody who believes in spreading good kinds of propaganda. Part of what made this book possible, or this document possible, or this evidence possible, is safety, friendship, family, loved ones, other people daring to do something that goes a little bit against the norm, and other people sharing when they've done something that has gone against the norm. I also want to use this as an opportunity to invite people, am I the only person from Dearborn getting this award? He's not from Dearborn. Yeah, Dearborn was a fantasy to him, as Dearborn is a fantasy to so many people. And Dearborn was a fantasy to me growing up. Who cut the mic? Okay. Dearborn, I didn't really experience racism in Dearborn because everybody was Arab and I thought I was Lebanese. I didn't know that I was American. And the people who were racist towards me were my high school English teachers. This is for you guys. It's not. It's for my parents. My parents who were like, Camelia, go, my dad and my mom, go be a writer. You're meant to be a writer. I was like, are you sure you want me to be a writer? Because it's going to get a lot louder from here, parents. Also, the museum has been a safe space for me, like a really, really safe space. We had a writing group that we used to host here with our friends, and we'd sit in the library, and we'd write stories that live here in Dearborn, thrive here in Dearborn, suffer silently in Dearborn, and none of us felt comfortable saying anything out loud or publishing anything with our names on it, lest our parents find out, the community finds out. بنفضح العيلة كلها، بنفضح الجالية كلها، بنفضح الكل، بنفضح حالنا، بنفضح. ما تعبتوش. So me and my friends would write together anonymously, never publish. We wrote together here for like 10 years and never published, guys. Which is to say, my Dearborn people, you guys better write. I better not be the only person from Dearborn up on this stage. When I was younger, Baba wouldn't buy me Tommy Hilfiger because Tommy Hilfiger was racist. Baba would buy me, he bought me a FUBU jacket. Why? Because FUBU is for us, by us. And that is a story you're really only gonna hear in Dearborn because of Detroit. And our experience here in Dearborn is so specific to being immigrants here in America and being adjacent to a part of both indigenous stories and black stories, and having all of those directly, the land, the people, all of this, we would not be able to be who we are without Black Detroit. We would not be able to do what we do without indigenous people who tended to this land, which was marshland for so long, and now we've paved over it, so we don't even know what this indigenous land is actually. Wallah, I had so much else to say, and I think I'm done. I'm out of time. I know, I love you, George. Friendship. Publish your friends. Okay, Dearborn. And also, I have to say one more thing. Fear proliferates here. That's a part of the affective experience of being here. And right now, everybody wants to point at Dearborn and blame Michigan for Trump getting elected and all that stuff. And you know what? Thank you, Hassan. Also, Hassan, and thank you to the long-standing organizers like my parents, like Amu Hassan Nawish, like Hassan Jibir, like all the people like Anan, who have made this place possible for us, who have figured out how to make an institution that lets me sit in a house on Michigan Avenue and write for a month. And nobody else has done that for us. And so I'm very grateful, and we need more of that. And Dearborn people, you better write and you better publish, and if you don't talk to me about it, I'm gonna be mad at you, okay? And one more thing. Wallah, I'm gonna keep going, but I'm Wallah, it was all organized here. Oh, the thing that I had to tell you guys. Keep going. Yeah, I love you guys, thank you. And see how I didn't have to say Palestine, because Palestine is in the heart of everything here. And I always have to say, the sense of justice has always been driven by that here, but we need to do it better because we're failing Palestine by the way that we're living here as well. In Dearborn especially, we can't be lazy here. Just because it's a haven for some people doesn't mean that we're doing it right. We gotta learn new ways to do it different all the time, and that means defending the most dehumanized among us. And so if you practice how to take care of everybody in your community without dehumanizing people in your community, queer people, black people, your neighbors, poor people, however we dehumanize in this community, which we do and we cannot pretend that we don't, Lebanese, dehumanizing Yemenis, and all these other ways, all of these are holes in our community, فضايح بدنا نعيش فيهم, and we have to push forward for them because I'm not going to keep quiet anymore. I love you guys. Thank you.
some people backstage, I made the mistake of highlighting all of these in green. Very hard to read under this lighting. So if you saw me up here like squinting, pausing, it's because I couldn't read. I didn't know, I was trying to read. Okay, oh, we're ready. All right, let's go. Next, we have our first honorable mention in poetry, Elisa Lucy. For her poetry book, What to Count, please join me in welcoming Elisa on the stage.
Oh boy, what an incredible honor to be here this evening and to receive this award. I see Anan sitting in the front row, and before this building existed, Anan and other people who were part of Access believed in writers like me and gave me a space to write. And then we had this beautiful museum come into being, and it's continued to thrive thanks to the efforts of an incredible staff. So I want to shout out Rima, Diana, Fatima, Rewa, everybody who works here. I am not a Dearbornite, but I am Dearborn adjacent, and I am ever grateful to be a part of this community. A lot of writers think about their family trees, and a big trunk or branch on my family tree is definitely this community and the museum, and I'm particularly grateful to the work of the museum over the course of the last year, as you all have opened your doors to the community while you are also managing your own grief and trauma. I see the incredible work that you're doing, and am so grateful to you all. And also, my book wouldn't exist without this place and without a lot of people who are here in this room, including my family and my husband and my daughter, and my sister, my brother-in-law, my nephews. I have to shout them all out. I can't miss anybody. This is a poem inspired by a little part of Harper's Magazine at the end where they tell you the latest research. Researchers say rumination is really a form of sleep, and that women's tears take away aggression in men. I'd like to disperse this round is of me, my making, a gift of bad fortune and wars. The many months I watch genocide, my own eyes, take this week's outpouring. Then there's the stinging nettle, the scalding water. Every child's amputee in Gaza, more than any time or space on earth. Make your cries in my surely feminine image, or stand beneath any mother, a ceaseless drip like gutter, while I cajole or corral thought into its full human appearance, turn over its hand, unroll its sleeves and mine, arm wrestle, bite its fingernails. Funny, this endless gnawing feels nothing like sleep. Thank you so much.
Our second honorable mention in poetry is Lina Khalaf Tufaha for her book, Khan and Her Sisters. Please join me in welcoming Lina to the stage.
مساء الخير. Nice to be here with all of you. I have to tell you, okay, I'm just a Dearborn wannabe, for being honest. I have been in love with this place since the first time I visited. Actually, Camellia was one of the first people to host a reading for me outside of Seattle, and I'm so honored to be here the year Camellia won. Congratulations. Congratulations to all the writers. I got to speak at Ghassan's Arab American literature class, so this is a family I'm really, really proud to belong to, a family of Arab American writers. Thank you for this incredible honor. Can and Her Sisters is a book, you know, I was doing fine until Camellia and her Baba started dialoguing, and then I start to cry, so يعني خربتوا المكياج. God bless the Babas, seriously. This is a book I wrote for myself, for my daughters. Writing about our lives in English is never where I wanted to begin. It's where I am. And it's not just a question of writing in another language, it's a question of trying to carry over everything that is loved, everything that is lost, everything that can be, and to create some sort of replica of what the inside of our hearts looks like. Can and Her Sisters, for those who know Arabic, you'll know this, is the name of a family of past tense verbs, and we learn it that way, kana wa akhawatha. And I love the idea that the past is women, is female, that we are the keepers of so much. That can be a gift and a burden. So here's a little bit from Can and Her Sisters, and then the last poem I'll read will be a love song to all of us Arab Americans, but especially Dearborn. What happened next? The timeline is teeming. Nakba unlocks the gates. From our house, my father carried the suitcase, and my mother carried my younger sister. She stopped only twice, to nurse her, then days later to bury her beneath a carob tree. Time opens the gate. Another sister was born in the first camp where we took refuge, and some parts of my mother too, though she buried her eyes on the road. A line repeats. The Nakba is teeming with locks. They became what they sought and were never granted. My father dissolved, and my mother fed the mourning doves. She stopped only once to grieve him. Then, days later, she walked us past the snipers. Nakba repeats itself. My love grew up in the second camp where we waited. This was the era in which we fought to return. Let the teeming. My love was sent out to sea, and the others, what can I tell you? The earth of the camp was too thin to cover their corpses. We repeat. It always looks the same. Lines of us walking, carrying smaller parcels, structures folding in on themselves. Repetition is a nakba. An accord rears its head when we meet the necessary measure of rubble. And they took the rest of the men in trucks through the gates. My love has no address to reach us. Nakba petitions time. My mother buried, and before her my sister. Only once, if the first burials suffice. Coordinates. On our field trip, we sang, as every child of these cities does, Nassam alayna al-hawa, and Miss Sahar and the bus driver swayed along to Fayrouz. A war engulfed nearby Beirut, shredding its portraits and shipping its refugees across the Mediterranean. But we sang, as Fayrouz does. We ate our sandwiches and sang. At Hadrian's Arch, Miss Sahar charged ahead, never more alive than among the stones. On the hills, swaths of wild mustard crowded trunks of rumis, schoolgirls at the feet of stately elders, speckling verdure with gold. Miss Sahar gestured at the salvaged city, to granite and limestone, languid in March light. Bypassing Zeus and his cluttered temple, heels clopping the cobblestones of the forum, she stood in full sun at the center of the ancient road, waved away tour guides. The Cardo runs north-south. Behind us, Amman. She faced the vanishing point and said, Sham, our Polaris of language. I hear the pulse of one word nesting in the womb of another, so that when she said, to the west, Palestine, our ancestry was once and eternally a sunset and an estrangement. And to the east, Baghdad, the qaf of her sharq crackled in the parched air. Were we ever listening as she conjured the wars we would endure or succumb to, the spring that would rise up, the cities we would march through, then flee from, cities that would bury us, or let us, each one alone, watch them burn on screens so small we held them in our hands? The last poem I'll share is a poem that was just published. It's not from the book. But, you know, this election season has been something for all of us. This poem owes a debt of gratitude to Frederick Douglass and Ghassan Kanafani. What to the Arab American is Election Day? A cabinet of curiosities, a conundrum, a closed circuit, a cost analysis, a distance between us, a carnival atmosphere, a crash landing, a lowest common denominator. Another day the administration does not make the call to stop the bombs. A cage in which we pace, a chiaroscuro of the dream, empire's curtain call, a casting out, after death, a kiss after death, the eve of calumny, our humble offering to the national altar. The last day, we are told, it might be easier to organize. A continuance, a carte blanche, a cloak and dagger affair, a loss called before vote counted, a cross to bear, a crossing, an intersection without working lights. A Tuesday in the 2nd November of the genocide, the 30th day of total siege on Jabalia, a conjugation of exile, the day after there was no arms embargo, the aftermath of speaking, the myth that keeps on taking, the devils we know, a spooky season, a haunted house, a hall of mirrors, a conflagration, a conversation between the sword and the neck. Thank you.
We're good? Okay. Okay, so before we move into the last award of the night, I have one more announcement from the museum. Diwan, a forum for the arts, is coming back. And will be held from September 19th and 20th, 2025 at the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, commemorating the museum's 20th anniversary. Building upon the foundation of our existing network and arts programs, Diwan aims to be an intimate and dynamic space for multimedia artists, community members, curators, and other creatives to perform, share ideas, and participate in panel discussions, lectures, and social media activities under one roof. The houses we build for ourselves is the theme for Diwan's call for proposals, inspired by the words of Atal Adnan, "The books I'm writing are houses that I build for myself." Adnan was reflecting on her frequent moving from Beirut to California and then settling in Paris, noting that she was more at home in her work than in any particular city. Stay tuned for more information. The last award of the night is the Anan Amri Lifetime Achievement Award. As has been the theme all night, the Lifetime Achievement Award recognizes the exceptional body of work by an individual or organization and their contribution toward advancing the field of Arab American writing and letters. Yep. To introduce this year's awardee, please welcome the director of the Arab American National Museum, Dr. Diana Abu Ali.
Hi, everyone. Masal khair. What a great evening it's been. This is one of my most favorite programs. All of the programs we do are my favorites, but this one's a very special one, as you know, it's great. Anyway, it is an honor to stand before you to present the Anan Amri Lifetime Achievement Award for Mizna. To Mizna. Mizna, a contemporary arts organization, was co-founded in 1999 in the Twin Cities as a grassroots organization by Catherine Haddad and Saleh Abu Daya, both of whom identified a need for an artistic space dedicated to Arab and Muslim writers to narrate their own stories and make work on their own terms. Since then, it has been at the forefront of creating and promoting artistic works that reflect the multiplicity and complexity of the Arab and Swana communities. The organization's literary magazine, also called Mizna, has been instrumental in showcasing both established and emerging Arab and Swana writers. The first issue of Mizna was published in January 1999, and since then, hundreds of writers and artists have been published in their biannual literary journal, which has addressed experimental and provocative themes, including unique takeover issues such as the Black Swana issue, guest edited by Safiya Al-Hilu, the comics issue, guest edited by Leila Abdul-Razzaq, and the queer and trans voices issue, guest edited by Zain Joukhadar. For its contributions to art and culture, Mizna has been awarded a Pushcart Prize, an Utni Independent Press Award, Pangaea World Theater's Award for Art and Social Justice, the Ordway Sally Award, as well as multiple Knights Arts Challenge Awards. In addition to literature, one of Mizna's crowning achievements has been its Twin Cities Arab Film Festival. This festival is the longest-running Swana-centered film festival in the Midwest and is one of the most robust, having showcased hundreds of films that explore everything from contemporary struggles to historical narratives, all the while providing a space for filmmakers to connect with audiences in impactful and indelible ways. All this speaks to the importance of Mizna and the long-lasting critical impact of their work. At a time when Arab and particularly pro-Palestinian voices are silenced or erased, Mizna refuses to bow down. They infuse their critical stewardship with a radical integrity. Indeed, we look to Mizna as a moral compass that always points to the North Star of doing what is right in the most challenging of times. As its name in Arabic suggests, Mizna is a rain cloud that quenches our thirst for courage in times of great adversity. Recently, a few of my colleagues went to Minneapolis to attend the 25th anniversary Mizna Gala. When they returned, they spoke repeatedly of how it seemed that everyone knew Mizna. The Uber driver from the airport to the hotel, the server at a restaurant. When mentioning they were in town for the Mizna Gala, the responses they got only reaffirmed how deeply embedded Mizna is in the cultural fabric of the Twin Cities. At the gala itself, they were struck by the commitment of the staff and volunteers, the dedication and ownership each person felt being a part of Mizna. And that is, I believe, at the heart of why Mizna is being celebrated today. Mizna is an unburdened, generous gathering space, a community, both physically and digitally, for Arab and Swana artists, writers, filmmakers, and cultural workers. So please join me in honoring Mizna by welcoming Mizna's executive and artistic director, Lana Barkawi, to the stage.
Wow, that was an incredible acknowledgement of our work. I'm really moved. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you so much. I want to echo Camelia. I feel so much love in the room. I love us. And I feel that we make each other more courageous and more brave. And I love being in the Arab American National Museum. Thank you for this incredible honor. On behalf of the small and mighty team at Mizna, two of whom are here with me, Alina Kevorkian and George Abraham. And former and beloved board chair Charlotte Karam Albrecht. Mizna is truly a collective of so many incredible people over so many years, rooted in such beautiful ideas and values, and that's what attracted me to the organization, and I think what keeps so many people in our fold. I'm just so deeply grateful for this award, and as I say, it's really, I'm standing up here, but it's really a collective award for so many of us. 25 years ago, Mizna was launched to fill a gaping void in the culture. We were not trained in publication, film programming, curation, nonprofit management. We figured those things out and honed those skills because we knew our community deserves excellent cultural spaces. We knew our artists deserved to have their work witnessed by their community. We deserve to be an indelible and undeniable part of the culture, not palatable to the broader culture, and frankly, not palatable necessarily to one another. Mizna has always been about all of us as we know us, not as they tell us we are, not as we sometimes tell each other we are. In that late 90s time, in that pre-9/11 time, we felt an urgency to provide a home for Arab and Swana creatives to tell our own stories, to push back against stereotyped, flattening, vilifying representations of our community in the media and in Hollywood, to imagine Arabs and Muslims beyond belly dancers, bombers, and billionaires. And look where we are. At this moment, there is such an incredible abundance of cultural production, as we've been seeing tonight. And there are so many more grassroots and necessary collectives, publications, festivals, and organizations emerging. It's a stimulating and exciting time. I once heard the scholar and poet Majdaleen Shomali say that when she enters spaces like this museum, like Rawi, like Mizna, that a fever is lifted, a low-grade persistent condition you didn't know you had until you entered a sheltering space and were relieved of it. The word Mizna, as Deanna says, the word Mizna means cloud, a place of relief and shelter. We hope our Mizna can be a space from which we can create a world that can be the way our artists conceive it to be: loving, generous, abundant, unsettled. Knowing that we as a collective are pouring ourselves into producing cultural work on artists' own terms, building relationships, sharing resources, mentoring future generations, that we are doing this work with intention, grounded in our values of love, resistance, and decoloniality. And also, this is an incredibly difficult, shattering time. I know I'm not alone in feeling the enormity of anger and grief and depth of the horrors we are seeing every day. Horror in knowing that people are facing the most inhumane suffering at the hands of the Zionist entity, underwritten and supported by our government and media. Horror in knowing that imperial and dictatorial forces are actively harming so many across our region and are working overtime to silence us. It is overwhelming, and let it overwhelm us. As Isabella Hamad has said, agony has become the only humane place from which to speak. Remain there. Recently, as Deanna also said, we marked our 25th anniversary at a gala, a strange time to hold a celebratory event. In fact, on the night of the gala, Israel began bombing Iran and Syria. That night, our keynote speaker, the great scholar Rashid Khalidi, reminded us that the forces that seek to erase us seek to erase not only our bodies by enacting genocide, but our culture by enacting epistemicide. Their hope is that the old will die and the young will forget. But we are here, we are alive, our culture is alive, evolving, inevitable. Thank you to the Arab American National Museum and to the judges for this beautiful recognition of Mizna's work. It is sacred to us and not taken for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And once again, a very special thank you to our judges, for our readers for sharing their work tonight, and our judges for helping us select this wonderful selection of books. It was my honor to be your MC tonight. I encourage you, thank you. I encourage you to purchase and support the work of each of our featured authors. As a reminder, we do have an open mic starting in approximately 20 minutes with Zahir John Muhammad. You can still sign up for the open mic upstairs. As I said, you cannot miss the sign-in sheet. It's very big. As well, can my winners and honorable mentions and Lifetime Achievement Award winners please stay behind for a couple of group photos. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure.